Hello, you're watching World News on TVP World live from Warsaw. My name is Sasha Farbach. A 34-year-old woman and a 32-year-old man from Ukraine have been detained in Katowice, Poland, on suspicion of operating on behalf of Foreign Intelligence Service. Jacek Dobrzynski, spokesperson for the Polish Security Services Coordinator, revealed that the pair was collecting information on Polish soldiers and critical infrastructure used to transport military aid to Ukraine. The suspects will remain in custody for at least 3 months.
Joint operations by the Military Counterintelligence Service and the Internal Security Agency led to the arrest of Ukrainians in Katowice, suspected of acting on behalf of a foreign intelligence service. A 32-year-old man and 34-year-old woman carried out intelligence assignments, including reconnaissance of Poland's military potential and the installation of devices for covert monitoring of critical infrastructure. The information they collected concerned soldiers of the Polish Armed Forces and critical infrastructure located in Poland, including transport infrastructure supporting logistical and military support for Ukraine. The investigation into the suspected crime under Article 130-3 of the Criminal Code is being supervised by the Military Department of the District Prosecutor's Office in Lublin. The court has decided that the suspects will spend the next 3 months in custody.
Lithuania indefinitely closed its border crossings with Belarus overnight Sunday after mysterious balloons violated its airspace for the third night in a row. Meanwhile, Vilnius International Airport was forced to temporarily suspend operations for hours due to at least one balloon flying in its direction. The closure of the border crossing with Belarus was announced by the Lithuanian Crisis Management Center. Airspace violations in previous days had also resulted in temporary shutdowns along the shared border. The initial incident took place on October 24th, when a large group of balloons was launched from Belarus towards Lithuania, forcing the authorities to temporarily close airports in Vilnius and Kaunas. The next night, air traffic at Vilnius Airport was halted again after more balloons were detected. After each incident, the government temporarily closed its last 2 operational border crossings with its eastern neighbor. In his nightly address, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced that rescue crews have cleared the rubble left by a deadly Russian drone strike on a residential building in Kyiv. He condemned the ongoing wave of Russian aggression and urged greater international cooperation on air defense.
Today, the clearing of the rubble at the site of the Russian Shahed strike on a house in Kyiv has already been completed. Rescuers have been working since night. Firefighting was also quite long. As for now, work has been completed at all locations. Today alone, and in Kyiv alone, 3 people died and 31 more were injured from the Russian attack. Among them are children, 7 children. We thank everyone who helps people, every rescuer, everyone in public utilities who really works to help. In just this week, the Russians have used almost 1,200 strike drones and already 50 missiles of various types against Ukraine, most of them ballistic.
China will continue to be a blind supporter of Russia. Jagannath Panda, director of the Stockholm Center for South Asian and Indo-Pacific Affairs, told TVP World during a recent interview. He made the comments when asked about U.S. President Donald Trump seeking China's influence to pressure Russia towards a possible end to the conflict in Ukraine.
China will continue to be a blind supporter to Russia, and therefore the Americans and particularly President Trump will be caught in a very delicate situation. I don't think Trump enjoys at this moment to have that, strategic bargaining chip in his favor, given the fact that he has much more domestic issues, economic issues to deal with the Chinese leadership. I don't think Ukraine will matter much. So therefore, my hunch is that probably Ukraine would not really be discussed. What will be discussed probably how the Americans will exert the pressure to lessen the imports from Russia as far as oil imports are concerned, and probably there will be some tactical understanding entering between Trump and Xi Jinping.
On Sunday, Russia successfully tested its nuclear-powered Burevestnik cruise missile, which Moscow says can pierce through every air defense system. According to Jeffrey Lewis from the Middlebury Institute, while Russia is, quote, crazy enough to build a nuclear-powered missile, it doesn't mean it's the only country with such capability.
This missile is really like a small airplane. It has a jet engine on it. And just like a jet engine uses fuel to burn oxygen, this does exactly the same thing, but it uses a nuclear reactor to burn the oxygen and produce the thrust. The system is intended to defeat a missile defense. And so the idea is because it can fly for basically an unlimited range, then it can fly around defenses. On the other hand, you could build more defenses, or you could use aircraft to go intercept them. So I don't think the system is invincible, but it's part of the deepening arms race that we're in, where they've come up with a new system and now we have to come up with something to shoot it down. I think we are just generally seeing a greater emphasis on nuclear weapons. We're seeing countries use nuclear threats more and more to get their way in the world. And so while I think a lot of these programs have existed for years, if not decades, the reason Putin is doing this on live TV while wearing fatigues is because he wants to send a certain message. So the United States investigated a very similar system in the 1950s, but decided that it was just too much of an environmental nightmare, and so chose not to build it. So it's true that only Russia has been crazy enough to actually build one of these things, but it doesn't mean that Russia is the only country that could build such a thing. It's just other countries, I think, have thought better of it.
U.S. President Donald Trump has touched down in Japan for talks with the country's first female prime minister, continuing his diplomatic Asian tour. Trump began his one-week trip to Asia and Malaysia, where he joined the signing of a peace declaration between Thailand and Cambodia. In Tokyo, the U.S. President and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi are expected to discuss Japan's defense capabilities, among other topics. Trump's tour is expected to conclude with a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea on Thursday. The world's two largest economies will seek to avert an escalation of their trade war. Beyond trade talk, Trump is expected to urge Xi to join the U.S. pressure campaign against Russia. European Council President Antonio Costa said he conveyed his strong concerns to Chinese Premier Li Qiang on Monday over Beijing's expansion of export controls on critical raw materials. In a statement released after Costa and Li met on the margins of the ASEAN summit, Costa added that he also expressed the EU's expectation that China helps to put an end to the ongoing war in Ukraine.
I met the Chinese Premier Li Qiang in the margins of the ASEAN summit. The EU attaches great importance to constructive and stable relations with China. We want to enhance cooperation to address global challenges. Following the EU-China summit, I stressed the need to make concrete progress to rebalance our trade and economic relationship. I shared my strong concern about China's expanding export controls on critical raw materials. I urged him to restore as soon as possible fluid, reliable, and predictable supply chains. I also expressed the EU's expectation that China helps to put an end to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that a satellite operations center will be built in Poland as soon as possible. The center will coordinate Poland's satellite programs and strengthen national and regional security. Speaking from the Copernicus Center in Warsaw, Tusk called the move a milestone in Poland's expanding role as a regional leader in space technology. He said Poland already has the talent and resources to make the project a reality, and that the center will become a hub for cooperation among developers and users of satellite systems. Marta Wachowicz, president of the Polish Space Agency, emphasized the importance of using satellite data and technology to enhance security across the region. She pledged that the government and her agency will do everything possible to support those driving the growth of Poland's space industry. Last evening, over 1,000 people demonstrated in the streets of the Georgian capital, 1 year after the pro-Russian Georgian Dream Party won parliamentary elections. As stated by the former president of the country, Salom Zurabishvili, who attended the protest, most Georgians have always been and remain pro-European and do not want to become, quote, a Russian colony.
The vast majority of the population has always been and remains pro-European, wants democracy, wants independence, doesn't want to become a Russian colony. And that is a responsibility also for the European Union. It's a responsibility for us, and we're standing there because of that, but it's also a responsibility for our partners.
The only way out of the situation we are in is to fight until the regime falls, united and standing together with a common effort. Everyone, parties, students, and all those who desire a better future for this country must stand together. This is precisely what the regime fears.
There has probably never been such a sense of unity, as we all desire a European future, but only and solely through peace. Moreover, it is absolutely essential because it is simply unthinkable for this country to have a European future under this government. That is why we are also demanding the resignation of this government.
On Sunday, British Justice Secretary David Lammy confirmed that migrant sex offender Hadush Kabatu will be deported from the islands later this week. Kabatu, who was sentenced last month for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman, has been due for deportation but was mistakenly set free by British authorities. His release prompted calls for tighter controls of the country's prison system and has further fueled the ongoing wave of anti-immigration protests across the UK.
It's right that he's questioned by the police following his route from Essex into London, and then of course 48 hours in which he has been basically around. It's right that we get to the bottom of what's happened over the course of those 48 hours, but I can assure you that he will be deported as he was expected to be deported. I expect that to happen this week. A member of staff has been suspended. And it's right that there is a full independent inquiry into what has happened, and I'll be announcing that to Parliament tomorrow and going into details about that terms of reference. We need to get to the bottom of how this happened and why it happened, and of course, on behalf of the public, I want to be reassured that it won't continue to happen.
As Europe faces mounting challenges, one event in Poland aims to explore solutions for what many see as a struggling Western democracy. The Freedom Games in Łódź bring together thousands of people who share liberal values. Our reporter, Karolina Szapland, was there and has more.
As the sun sets on the 12 Freedom Games here in Łódź and the final speakers wrap up, many are still remembering Saturday's special guest, George Clooney, whose message of appreciation of Poland's independent spirit delighted the audience.
I find it to be exhilarating to be able to challenge people that have a lot of power. I think it's important to do. I mean, this is a country that is famous for challenging people in power and is all the better for it. And I feel that our country at its best has been that, and the people who have succeeded the most are the people who tend to stand up for what they believe in.
But not everyone came to see a Hollywood star. Many of the younger attendees gathered to hear from Polish politician Jan Senyszyn, whose clear anti-populist message and approachable style struck a chord with them.
For me, like a young person, I really think that she's like a really real person for us. She showed her real face in television, and I actually like it because I can like fit with her thoughts, with her ideas. For me, this is the best way of politician could be.
Over the last 3 days, Freedom Games has highlighted one key issue: how the liberal side can get their message across in the times of rising uncertainty, in the times of populism. For TVP World, I'm Karolina Szapland.
The main avenue in Mexico City transformed on Sunday into a spectacle featuring skeletons and other ghastly monsters as Mexicans begin celebrations ahead of the Day of the Dead. The parade is among the many events held throughout the city in which families honor their loved ones who passed away, as well as celebrate the continuity of the cycle of life.
Mexico is a country with a rich culture, and I believe that the Day of the Dead is one of the biggest celebrations. That's why Mexico City is so colorful during this time of the year with events like this. We can enjoy our traditions. People who come to Mexico can enjoy what Mexico is all about. its traditions, and the people.
We came to the parade in our van. This is the second year we've participated because it's a tradition we love. I come with my children, my whole family.
We represent the cartinas. We represent death, that magic they have, those colors.
And with that cultural note, we end this World News Update, but there's more coming up right here on TVP World, so don't go away.